Okay. And you're right. There is a role, you know, and it's just seeing if I'm flexible in that role, and seeing that just because I've got something good to say, the end result, even if it's something good to say about how important everybody's voice is, if I'm doing it in such a way that other people aren't making their contribution, then I've failed.
Yeah.
From my intention. So I don't know the answer, but I'm working on it.
Well, I don't know how many of these we've done, but I'm still trying to figure out what we're doing. But I mean, I keep coming back. I keep coming back every week, and I really enjoy them. But it's just sort of a I don't know. They're a little bit different each time, and they just sort of take on a life of their own. So it's just like a nice conversation that I enjoy. But I'm not sure what we're accomplishing.
Okay.
Are we accomplishing anything?
Yes, we are. Absolutely. So first, so in my response to that, there's a very ancient blog that's 19 years old now called boingboing.net. You may have heard of it. Boingboing.net. Anyway, it started in San Francisco, very, very early days of the internet. And why do I still go to it each and every day? Well, because there's always enough surprise. It's always, if you go there, it says a directory, who has that anymore, of strange and interesting things. So every day it'll be something exotic enough, strange enough, right? So I think that's part of the attraction, but there's a context behind that.
Well, I like, sorry.
Yes, Laura?
I like these sessions because it reminds me to slow down, and it reminds me to communicate better. So each time we do this, it gives me an opportunity to listen to the way in which you all speak, and it also gives me a chance to know that some of my words are very local to me, not even English or British, just local, and having the mindfulness to maybe cut some of those out, because, you know, if it's British, then fair enough, then you guys are learning something new about what's currently being used in England. But if it's not, then it's reminding me not to use certain words.
It's like a very open space. Just for a moment, I'm going to send a message to this woman from Rabat because she may be confused about the time. Please talk amongst yourselves.
Can I talk about what I'm doing?
Yeah.
So Lee, I'm launching myself into doing talks and workshops.
Yeah.
And it's been a really hard battle with myself for, I'd say, 20 years. And now I've found a horse that I feel comfortable with. But there's so much to learn, you know, as in mistakes along the way.
Yeah. Well, tell me more.
Yeah, I'm Mystic Mama. Basically, I've got a lot of knowledge. Who knows whether it's relevant or not relevant? We don't know. But I keep being asked so many questions, and they're always the same questions, and it has been for 20 years. And so Mo's suggestion was do some modules. And I was like, oh yeah, because, you know, and good argument about it was that I don't have to keep repeating myself. If somebody asks me something that I know is covered by the modules, please pig out on the modules. It covers lots and lots and lots of different things. So part of that is obviously I'm being asked to do talks and workshops. So I'm setting up my own just to get in practice, because I've been a hermit since my car accident four years ago. So it's kind of getting my feet wet again and getting out the door. But my heart's going, ah, you know, the thought of being center stage with everybody looking at me.
Yeah.
So, any tips?
Tips? Well, are you going to do this around London or what?
No, here in the village where I live. I don't know if I'm ready for London yet. Maybe next week.
How far are you away from London?
About an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
I've got access to London, but I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds exciting. Any tips for speaking? You know how to speak. You speak. You're very eloquent, and you're very good at speaking. And,
I know, but when I'm on a stage, I become 7 years old, and I'm like, oh.
Maybe you have to be in the not on a stage as such.
Yeah.
That you mix it up with the audience. That always disturbs them in a good way. Because it makes it live.
Breathe over their shoulders, you mean?
Yeah, you know, because if you see somebody who's still checking their phone, you can just go up and stand close to them without saying a word and talk to everybody else, and they feel your presence very clearly, and they
no, can't do that. That's nanny. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But it's tomorrow, and I'm not prepared on many levels. But I'm going to wing it tomorrow just to get the feel of being the focal point.
Yeah.
You have a talk tomorrow. Okay. Are you going to rehearse it, or are you going to go in there and wing it?
I'm going to wing it. Because if I rehearse it, anytime, even when I used to sing, I'd know everything I needed to know, all the moves, everything. I'd get on stage and go.
Yeah.
I want Laura to rehearse the first 5 or 10 minutes.
I think it's important to at least get started. You know, have something that you can get yourself going, because when you first walk out, sometimes it can be very one can be very nervous and forget everything. So if you've got something, you know, your first 5 minutes carefully crafted, I think then it's easier to wing it after that.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
I'm just trying to work out whether I should talk a little bit about me and my background and how I arrived at where I am, or whether I should tell a story of some sort, or crack a joke that's really irreverent and rude and classist and racist and sexist and just break the ice.
I wouldn't do that.
I would say, yeah, I mean, you know, it's more.
I was kidding.
I mean, I would say something that relates to the audience or the numbers or the people, or, you know, something that's human, I would say, and then tell a story about your experience with somebody, and then I did this, and based on this background, this is my background, and this is what I'd like to do with you today.
Who is the audience?
Anyone that wants to change their lives on any level.
But I mean, is it a group of people that have asked you to speak?
Yeah, but they won't be present, because I get people. I'm still doing it all over the world, and I've got to get the confidence to do videos. So these talks will help me. Plus, I get out there and people get to know who I am, and hopefully I'll get some more clients as well. So it's kind of got many branches to it, because if I can get more clients, paying clients, that makes a difference as well.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a video right now, and you're fine.
Oh, I forgot. No.
That's a part of it. Is just don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Stay present. It's hard. I used to get, you know, when I used to speak, you know, in scientific conferences and things, I'd get very nervous because, you know, we weren't really trained to speak. We were trained to be lab rats, and then suddenly you're supposed to get up on stage, and that was terrible for a while, you know, until I just kind of learned to just relax. And the whole key is relaxing. you know, which you seem to do. I mean, here you're all animated and fun and laughing and, you know.
So,
But it's kind of, it feels like one-to-one, that's why.
so then
Yeah.
it's quite clear what we're doing right now.
Yes.
May I suggest the agenda? It has self-interest, but I think it has value. So, you know, I've talked about this communication trust power more than once. What do you think that is? And could it be useful for your talk tomorrow, Laura?
Well, you could do like 2 hours for me.
But what do you think? What do you think? I'm being a little bit teacherly. I'm just testing what you know a little bit, and that's necessary. This is also true for you, Lee, because I think it will have value. Because sooner or later, you're going to have to present in high-pressure situations to do with your startup as well, right?
I'm comfortable with it now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've made lots of presentations to investors and things like that. So
Awesome.
I've overcome it. Now, yeah, I say that, but if you put me up in a strange room in a big conference, I'd probably panic again. But I've gotten over a lot of it, and I would just say that the key to that is just learning to relax. You know, if it's breathing, you know, do some breathing, but just, you know, be careful to go out there relaxed.
Well, then,
yeah.
Then if I can be a little bit leading and be a teacher for a moment, because I think it will have real value for Laura, for you tomorrow. So, and it's also being recorded. So, you know, I've talked about this communication trust power. So how could it benefit you for tomorrow's talk, or also how is it present in this conversation right now?
Well,
I'll answer as well, of course.
Well, I'm feeling that it's about my centering myself, realizing that I can do it. I know what I need to know. And I also know that I'm eloquent. So me as a person, and my internals, and also knowing that I can bring myself to stillness. I can calm. Sweating now. Oh my God. Just thinking about tomorrow. But it's knowing that there's an audience there. So that's we. So I'm hoping that those that come are interested in what the I is offering, and so that we can communicate the information. They can tell me, and I bless you.
Sorry.
So it's a shared space of people who are interested. And I think if I can relax, I can communicate.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, so just to remind you or everyone, you know, is that right now we're experiencing a we between us. There's a we. Now, even if I start shouting at you, insulting you, it's still going to be a we space. Even if you somehow were triggered into trauma, you would still know that I was in communication with you in some way. Maybe if it was such intense trauma that you shut down completely to anything from the outside, that's possible if it's a really intense trauma. But this is not going to happen tomorrow. I don't think someone is going to be really nasty. But even if they are, they're still in communication with you. They'll each just, your eyes are looking at their eyes. There's a knowing, there's something happening between us. So this is a we space. And in that space, you feel connected with the audience. And it's learning to trust that that connection is enough. With a good intention, it's definitely enough. If your intention is to serve them, well, serving them is the genuinely wanting to help them is the perfect antidote to fear or terror. Because if you're thinking about what will help the other person, you can be terrified, but you keep your focus outward towards the other person because you want to help them. You need to know who you want to help. So your attention is out there, just focused on, I want to help them.
I think that's really good advice. Because when you think about it, stage fright comes from worrying about yourself. You're worried, the stage fright is, are they going to like me? Are they going to listen to me? Am I going to stumble? Am I going to look foolish? It's all about me. And if you put the emphasis on your audience, is what I'm hearing you say, Mo, if you put the emphasis on your audience, it takes away all that self, what am I looking for? Self
Doubt.
consideration, yeah.
I would add an essential other bit too. I agree, Lee, totally. Just so we don't get lost in the audience, because there are some people who are tremendous performers, but they become dependent on the reaction of the audience. And then if the audience starts booing them, then it's a very, very difficult situation. So the right place really to start, I chose to start with the we space, but actually before any of that is this knowing that I exist. Feeling our feet on the floor, going, this could be the worst experience of my life, but I still exist. I will be experiencing the worst day of my life. I am, I can communicate, I can learn to communicate. And knowing that not as words, not I can communicate, because it sounds like it's faking it till you make it. It sounds like it's a slogan to tell yourself, instead of going, oh, I have always been present. I have always been here as long as I've lived my life. No matter what happens, I'm still going to be at home in my knowing that I exist. So then that's always present. And then seeing that simply eyes looking at each other means there's a we space. That two people or more know that a conversation is happening. So that would be the foundation, I would say. And that if you focus on that, you will communicate to the audience your deep peace and relaxation. And or this is all true and you currently feel terrified, and you might be able to feel comfortable to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm terrified.
I think maybe that's the way to go. To be open and honest, tell them what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then hopefully get them to open their hearts and minds and see where we go.
Yeah.
I just exhaled.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really important question that Lee asked before about what are these calls about, and I'd like to return to that, which is surprise, that it's unknown. So my preference would be that there would be no value at all, that this would be an open space. And actually, I don't even say that there's going to be values of inclusion. That would be ideal, but I've decided to go with just one value of inclusion, and I hope there won't need to be a second. There is sometimes I talk about not making it commercial, but as a second requirement, because it seems like some people are nervous that it's going to be selling something later. Yeah, and that's not the plan here. So it's just, for me, it's like you've got some preconditions. People come from different countries, they've got different cultures, they've got varying competence in English, and how can we create a space that includes all of that? That's really, so the least, and also for myself, making sure that there's not hidden, I guess there could be a hidden agenda that people could say, wow, he's leading this group and what are his skills? And maybe they could come back to me about that. But at the moment, it feels like the Globish Open Space is just emerging by itself. There's a lot of trust that important principles are getting learnt, and that over time we'll turn that into principles that have value for other people. I guess that would be my answer, Lee.
Okay.
So it's a very, and also personally, I'm completely convinced that conversations can be grounding, and just being in a conversation can be a grounding experience, can be something that does not take us away from our deepest needs as human beings. That we don't have to step away from any contact with anybody, and that they actually, the conversation itself, when I truly listen to the person who's speaking in a more and more deep and full way, doesn't matter who it is, including the ones who might speak too long or whatever, that there's something very human and very profound that can be understood in the conversation itself, not what the conversation is about, in the process of the conversation. How do you react to that, Lee? Is it satisfying or not really?
Well, you know, I mean, I'm coming into these just for the open space, and I enjoy chatting with you. You know, I don't know that I would be here probably regardless of what this was about. But when you come back and you say this is about Globish or about communication trust power, it raises a question like, what part of this is that? And so, I mean, if you're going to call it something, I feel like you need to define it.
Yeah.
You know, one time you did you spent much of our conference sort of giving a little lecture about
Yeah.
things, and I think I would find some of that helpful if you were to do that.
Well, I better jump in. Laura, watch jumping into a lecture in a heartbeat, okay? So in this moment, I've got to gather my thoughts, and first I need to frame it. Lee, you've made the request, and I think it's a perfect subject. Do you agree, Laura? Yeah. So what kind of time frame would you like for an answer today?
Oh, I could stand 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know.
All right, good. So just looking at the time. So let me see. So I'm going to pull in Globish and communication trust power. And so to give you an idea what's going on. So speaking for myself, the best place for me to start, which makes the most, to explain myself the easiest, is to say that I have a mystic heart, that to be a mystic is my greatest interest. And a mystic, I can use another word for that. It simply means that I personally am convinced that our own inner experience supersedes, is greater than what appears to be on the outside. Okay, so you don't have to, I don't have to use words like religious words or spiritual words or any of those words, but just to say the primary inner experience is greater than that which appears only on the outside.
Well, greater? Do you really mean greater?
I do mean greater. I do mean greater, and I'll need to explain myself, including that. I do mean greater.
Well, you're placing a value. You're placing.
Oh, greater means it's more comprehensive. It's more comprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
And
But it seems like you're making a judgment value there. I mean, it's not that I'm disagreeing with you.
No, it's good. You need to push back as you need to. That's good. So why do I say that the significance of this apparently inner experience is the greatest, has the greatest potential for happiness for any human being. So that's based on my own experience, and of course what I just said is just an opinion. So everybody has to see for themselves if it's true. So then, this inner experience, the experience that you have by yourself, Lee, you have by yourself, Laura, or anybody listening, or myself, is an experience that was our first experience. On the first day of life, we didn't really know there was an outside. We were just in this experience where we were, and we wanted, and we had emotional reactions, but we didn't even really understand that we had a mother. There was no separation between tiny baby and mother. There was one event. The baby experiences one event as being, it's all me. Yeah, that's standard psychology, psychological understanding, and we can imagine it for ourselves. So that state is still present now. That understanding is still present now, because we know, and this is standard science, that we have this basic understanding, and then we build on it, and we find out, oh, we have a mother, and then a mother and a father, and then a family, and then a village, and then a city, and then a country, and then a universe, and then multi-universes. But that primary experience, I am, includes everything. And even in this moment, we can tune into that. Now, for the purposes of the time frame, Lee, because you're looking puzzled, I'll just keep going. You can just imagine it for a moment, and we can clarify after. So from my point of view, I'm convinced that this inner experience is the primary one, is the only possible one that will give us happiness long term, permanently. Because every other experience comes and goes. There's no other experience that we have that doesn't come and go. We get angry, then we stop being angry. We're happy, then we stop being happy. We meet somebody, the love of our life, and then the love of our life leaves. We receive lots of money, and then the money goes. It's all part of change, but this I doesn't change. It's always present, at least as long as we are alive. You can either resonate with that or just imagine that it's the one thing that's present, and I'll go into it more if necessary. So if that is a foundation, then it's also present during a conversation. And this knowing of this I am, and also the we are, is before words. It's both are non-separate, non-local experiences. in non-separate. There is a space, there is a we space between us right now, but where is it exactly located? In this Zoom call, where is the conversation located? So it's not local. In a video call, it makes it obvious. So we have this I am and this we are, and this we are is the most, the I am experience and the we are experience is the most basic reality of any conversation. There is no conversation happening if there isn't a we space. It is not happening. If I have behaved very badly, and then Laura is so angry with me, let's say, then there's no we space. Even if I try and talk with her, there's no we space. There's Laura busy with her feeling of how badly I have misbehaved, for example, or vice versa, of course. Okay, so so that what I just described is this communication confidence. And so when we understand this, then we can apply and be conscious of this we space during any communication. So then it's the space where there is no agenda. In this feeling of we are, there is no agenda. There's no, the first time you meet somebody in a shop, you don't exactly know what's going to be said. And the more we keep the agenda away from that direct first contact, which is a heart contact because it's, there's no mind happening. If you look and you walk around a corner, and that first moment when you see somebody and they see you, before speech, before your own thoughts, you will find that your heart is giving you a lot of information about that interaction before you start to speak. A lot of information. Some of it's confusing, a lot of it's unclear, it's only a feeling. The feeling could be wrong, it could be a projection, but over time we can really use. So my own experience is that so that's communication trust power. Then based on how my own life experience has been going from a monolingual one language culture to a multi-language culture, and seeing that school wants you to just focus on the words and grammar of another language, completely forgetting this inner experience of connection. And so Globish is based on the idea, let's not get too hung up with the right words and the right grammar. Let's make sure we have enough, but that's enough. And so then this space just emerged, and we're playing, we're seeing if we just open up a space to the world that's very, very open. And there is a value of wanting inclusion, successful inclusion. Maybe that's enough for now. That was 10 minutes. And you had at least one question, Lee. Or one objection.
No, not an objection. All I was doing is pointing out that you're placing a value on inner versus outer experience.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing with that. I'm just noting that
Yes.
that you have made that judgment.
Yes, yes.
And I agree that the inner experience is a foundation of the outer experience. But, you know, if you say it's I forget how you said it, it's easier to be happy or something with the inner experience.
It's easier, slightly different, that if you want to understand existence, or this, whatever this is, then it's very valuable to have the biggest context possible. Because why not? If you want to find out reality and you only concentrate on this much, then you're not seeing this, right? So context outwardly would be thinking, well, what's the at least as big as the observable universe? Because if you're doing anything less, it's not the reality that is scientific reality.
You mean material reality?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's one context. Another context would be you can look for happiness in the next 5 minutes, and probably a chocolate mousse will do that for the next 5 minutes, right? Or a bottle of beer or something. But in a longer, if the best is to look for a source of happiness based on something that is long term, that doesn't go away. Because if you're happy in a car and you forget that the car is going to get rusty, that you're going to get bored with the car, all of these things, then that would be a waste of your time. So much better to say, to focus on what is always present. What's always present? Our own inner experience. What part of our inner experience? Can't be thoughts, can't be feelings, because they come and they go. So then you will be happy and then unhappy.
Yeah.
Better be something that is always present. And what is that? This pre-verbal, deeper understanding, knowing I exist, and seeing for yourself. There is never a moment when I don't know somehow that I exist, even when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Even when you're sleeping, there could be smoke in the room or a fire alarm, and you will wake up and react. There's something in you that still knows of your own existence. If you were beginning to die in your sleep, if you have the energy and strength, you will wake up. So there's a knowing even in sleep. So my belief is, knowing this understanding of I am, this non-dual I am, non-dual we are. I know, Lee, you know many of these ideas. I'm just still presenting an answer, a structured answer. So if that is true, then what I've found is deeply satisfying to bring this understanding into our conversations. It opens the heart, it keeps the heart open. Each person we meet is, instead of, oh, an obstacle to my day, each person that I meet is, I'm using a religious phrase, but we can use many, is potentially the face of God. Right? Is potentially looking at them and going, ah, you are human too, like me. And then that is a foundation for great love. And this is a practice, because I don't want anybody to have the impression that I'm doing anything other than practicing something that is very satisfying for me, not anything about that I've arrived or anything like that.
You're not trying to tell us that you're enlightened, that you're an enlightened being. I'm being facetious.
I know you are, but the phrase "I am enlightened" is problematic right there.
Right, and
I know you're making a joke.
yeah, I agree with you, and I think, you know, maybe in the context of what the planet needs, you know, people are focused on the material world. So it's what I hear you doing is shifting focus to the interior, to the internal, non-material world, and I think that that's valid. But as far as placing a value judgment, you know, once you get to where you're talking about, I don't place a higher value on either one. I think they're much the same. I think that they're both dreams. We're dreaming in material world, or we're dreaming in the non-material world. And the dreams are, you know, in a Buddhist sense, impermanent. You know, they're all transient. Our thoughts are transient. Our cars are transient. The newest fad of clothing is transient. So it's transient, whether it's internal or external. And so I can't place a higher value on one or the other, except I would say that the internal gives rise to the external. I think the internal was around before the external. There was consciousness before there was bodies for us to inhabit, is how I tend to look at it.
Well, it could be, you know, it's unclear to me, but there could be that what I'm talking about is not the ultimate. How I'm talking is not the ultimate possibility. In one sense, that this knowing that I'm talking about of existence, it's not clear to me that I know that at the moment of death, the death of the body and death of the mind, I don't know if this existence knowing continues. I welcome Laura to step in, but I'm being careful. And especially in talking about it, the way I'm talking is something that many more people can connect with, rather than going to subtle levels of very, very subtle levels of consciousness. The kind of level that I'm talking about is much more accessible and has real value for our own happiness, our own peace of mind, our own groundedness, and for how we operate in the world. And if people found the kind of satisfaction that I'm talking about in any conversation, their heart would be refreshed and regenerated on a daily basis. They would be satisfied by the enjoyment of a little interaction with a shopkeeper. You see? And like you say, then the need to go and buy big objects will become less. We will become better people. There's more chance of more peaceful, productive, effective interactions in the world. So these kind of values are, you know, these are claims, I would say, that I could find some studies for, but it's my own feeling of, it floats my boat. I like it. I like these kind of interactions.
Like it a lot.
I like it a lot. Yes.
In my younger days, unbeknownst to me, I had my own little inner world going on. And I wouldn't say like fairy friends and things like that, but I always found my own leverage into feeling joyful. I don't know what it was. I used to just, whatever was going on in my life, I used to be able to cry a little and then bounce back. A bit like the little gazelle being chased by the lion, do the little shake and then I'd be off again. And interestingly, I lost sight of that. I think when I had children and got bogged down work, kids, I suddenly lost sight of that and I was being sucked into a vacuum. And then I got involved with some Egyptian studies and we started meditation, doing, you know, the sun worshipping first thing in the morning, whatever. And I suddenly found that I call it my little mojo, you know, the little tail that wags at the back of you. And I started to realize that if I could feel love inside and just breathe into it, what used to happen is suddenly I'd come out of, whether it was desperation, whether it was worry, whether it was fearfulness, if I wound myself back into that space, I could be constant. And it got easier and easier and easier to feel the joyfulness inside again. And because
constant or consistent?
Constant. Occasionally I'd be dragged out of it, but then what would happen is I'd be able to pull myself back into it. And that's when I first started to understand how it, because lots of different people told me about, you know, find your inner peace, find your happiness, find your inside, because nothing, no thing externally should be able to take from that consistent feeling inside, the rod, the beingness. But obviously, especially when you're young, I mean, I was in my mid-20s, late 20s, and I was being told, you know, it doesn't matter if your kids are sick, it doesn't matter if your car breaks down in the rain, no, keep your inner peace and joy. And then I started to actually understand that if you didn't release that feeling that had been triggered by whatever the external was, it's harder to get back into that lovely, joyful place. So that's why I refer to the little gazelle that's been chased by the lion. If you can vent it in that moment, it stops it going in and causing a block. And then you carry on your way in a lovely place. So I get what you're saying, Mo. It's finding that self that brings you back to that really lovely place, no matter what's going on. Because talking about manifestation, if I'm focused on the things that upset me, and because I can't stop thinking about it, you know, the little treadmill keeps going because I'm upset. So because I didn't shake it off and didn't express it in the moment, even if I just cried, it means that it becomes another thing that I'm, you know, somebody mentions a person's name, boom, I'm back there, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm hurt. So it really is a beautiful moment for me, knowing that no matter what goes on, I can let the steam off and then go back. Because I don't try and pretend anymore that, oh, I've got to be this zen, peaceful person and, you know, all my shadow side doesn't exist and I've got to put a big lid on it and lock it up. I realize that makes monsters inside.
So what I'm hearing is there's like a foundation that's always with you. There's a knowing that there's, no matter what, there's a foundation that is your home.
Yeah. And it's also, a lady once said to me, right now, in this moment, right now, are you worried about the thing? Is there anything to worry about? Are you going to be homeless? No. And she went through a list of things that I had mentioned that I was worried about. And she, is that now? And I went, no. She said, so why are you worrying? And I thought, maybe I'm addicted to being worried.
So it sounds like before tomorrow, we need to go through all your worst fears about tomorrow, speaking tomorrow. How's that sound, Laura? We can do that after. Sounds good.
So for me, I really get, and I have an understanding that if I can slip into that lovely place, even, I mean, for me, I usually do 3 deep breaths and I keep repeating, thank you, I love you. So I'm talking to prana, to everything around me, divine, but I'm also talking to my physical form to let her know, no matter what, I appreciate everything she affords me, everything that she lets me do, even when I'm naughty, by having a cigarette or a drink or whatever it is I do that she doesn't like, she still clears it and brings me back to me, you know, so I can function in my spacesuit. So I'm always grateful for that game because I'm in the game.
No, it's a really cool question, Lee, that you're asking, and you know that maybe in a way I'm taking it as a little bit of feedback that I could say more about what these hours are about, because a hidden agenda, I suppose, would be that we have a good time, and that I get value out of it, and I feel over time, maybe with better marketing, blah blah blah, that more people will like this idea and join, and at a certain point there's going to be too many, and then we're going to explore how to scale. And Lee, I mentioned that group, Conversations That Mind and Matter. Well, the guy who's leading it, he has in mind to build up to a community, a very active, engaged community with 300,000. So, and they're very smart people in this group, and you know, they're bringing up in all kinds of ideas of how to scale and the principles of a successful conversation. And so I guess another way to answer your question, Lee, would be to say, if I look at my whole life, what's been most important to me? And actually, it's been conversations like potentially can happen here. And these have been with people who have presented as teachers to me, some of them, and they've said something very small, just a couple of sentences, and it's completely changed the trajectory of my life, the route, the pathway of my life. And I'm very grateful about that, you know. And if I've been given so much through a simple conversation, you know, I've met Krishnamurti, Thich Nhat Hanh, Dalai Lama, and others that you don't know, and their very small responses have really given so much to me. So I guess actually it's the feeling of how can I be in contact with others that's genuinely helpful. And for me personally, it's very satisfying to feel I'm getting better at doing this. Does that answer the question?
Sure. If that's your answer, that answers the question. I mean, it's your answer to give, so
Yeah.
it couldn't be wrong, you know.
No, that's right. That's right.
But what I'm hearing you too say is that in response to my feedback, or whatever you want to call it,
Yes.
It is more directed to practical matters. You know, it's more everyday living rather than, I think I was kind of starting to go off in this sort of esoteric mysticism, where you're really, this communication trust power is really practically oriented.
Well, it's a reality with practical results.
Yeah.
It's a knowing that this, and it emerged, and it's helpful to say it emerged out of 17 years still going on of conversations just like this, where people needed to bring their communication in English up to full speed, and seeing if I'm this way with a person, when they feel the most connected with me. So that's been a driving force, is how do we create connection? How do we feel, how does somebody else feel connected? And I found out working with people that walk into my classroom or my coaching room, and as soon as I possibly can, I have to find out what's most interesting for the other person, because they might only have a few hundred words in English, but if I find exactly their favorite subject that turns them on, whatever it is, can be fingernail polish, right? Whatever it is, and I start asking questions about that, they will want to speak, they will feel welcomed, they will feel recognized, they will feel loved, and they will naturally want to speak, which is the goal of my language teaching, communication, coaching work is to encourage people to feel free to be. Free to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good tagline. Globish Open Space, free to be. Not bad.
But I do feel that it's also esoteric, because for me, I'm working from the heart and allowing my mindfulness to slip into a place of relaxation, so that I'm kind of feeling around, not just thinking around. So to be honest with you, it's both. It's practical, but the esoteric of having an open mind, heart, just feeling into everybody and going with that flow. So if somebody wants to talk about football, I have no interest in football, but I'm interested in the way they express it, the feelings, the excitement, the joy. You benefit from that energy anyway, because everybody gets raised or lowered depending on the person that's speaking. So to me, it's really, you know, like the guitar, you pull that string and across the other side of the room, the exact same string gets pulled in the other guitar. And we're much the same. So I'd say it was hugely esoteric, because there's nothing more beautiful than an experience with people that are speaking to you, you know, so that even though it's a we space, and individually it's an I we space, when somebody gives you that attention, it becomes a we I space. And I feel myself flowering. Like now, I have your attention.
Yeah.
I can see there's no judgment, and you're just allowing me to be.
Yeah.
So I come away from it feeling like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah, and
I'm worthy.
Yeah, yeah. You've got our attention, and I was thinking that whole time that you were talking that this is it. This is the you that you want to present right there. You should go back and just watch this, because this is being recorded. You should just watch what you just did. That would be perfect for tomorrow.
Thank
I
you.
agree.
But do you see, I feel this is so beautiful, because normally in a group setting, I get very nervous. I usually can't stop coughing. I get all hairy here, and I can't stop coughing. And I know it's nerves, it's my throat going, no, 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 we're not going to speak. Because I am so off the wall. My ideas are different to most people. And so for me, it's like, you know, not knowing if people want to burn the Wicca or whatever it is. I'm not Wicca, but, you know, people always assume if you do healing and hands-on, and they think, oh, you're a witch. No, but getting past that stigma is not so bad now, because there's a lot of spiritual people, so-called spiritual, but it has been really hard work, you know, getting to a point. So I love this. It is definitely practical, because it's helping me learn how to be, in the sense of being more mindful of others, but at the same time mindful of myself, so that it's a win-win, rather than, what's the word, like a train, you go in there and then wonder why people are going, okay, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Overwhelm.
Yeah. So I think I think it's worth it to examine the word esoteric, because perhaps all three of us have gone through many conversations of people who say, if it's not scientific, it doesn't exist. And all the things that I've been talking about are absolutely recognizable, verifiable for each person in their own experience. There are a few people who are going to say, do I exist? But then they need to spend time with psychiatric support. Right? We all know we exist. So this is so you don't have to use any religious words or spiritual words. You can just say, let's look at these things. Would these things be helpful for you in your life? Would it be helpful that you feel so grounded that when you turn the door to walk into a room where the person for a job interview is going to interview for your next great job, would it be helpful that you'll feel grounded and open, and you can access the information, the pre-verbal information about this person, so you can respond better, so maybe you get the job? Would that be esoteric or highly practical? And I feel it's important for us to know how to talk about these things in this way, so that these, I call them silly people, but they do it, who say, oh, that sounds like woo-woo. Well, listen to that criticism, or esoterically, I know you weren't being critical. And to catch the words that they say and say, what do you mean? And so then you can help them. And I'm getting feedback at the moment that I need to become much softer in how I'm doing that. But you can use their words to support them to start to see more clearly. What did they just say? What did they actually mean? And does it actually make sense? Or you might find out that they've got beliefs that are the real woo-woo, unexamined beliefs about themselves, and they're unconscious about it. So if we become good at conversation, then it's like we're constantly able to support anybody around us in a way, hopefully, that allows them to stay free. So this is all part of how this event to each week has come to life. Thoughts, Lee?
I don't have a particular thought. I think we're still, I feel like we're still defining things in a sense and understanding each
Sorry, it's
other.
hot in here.
Huh?
It's very hot in this kitchen.
Hot?
Yeah.
Is it hot? Is it warm in the room, or are you just
Yes,
excited?
I'm in the kitchen, so I've had the tumble dryer on and
Oh,
cooker and stuff, so I'm like,
So, Lee?
I'd go
But anyway,
outside, but it's dark.
I'm all for esoteric. I've been spending the last several years, numerous years, studying esoteric and living in esoteric on a mountaintop, and cutting out the material realm to really investigate the internal realm. So I hear you, and I'm all for that. I was just commenting on the value of the placing a value on one or the other, because I don't view one particularly more valuable than the other, except that if you lack one, you probably should spend some time looking at it. And I think that that's the case in our society, where we have been, as a society, we are focused on the material realm and have ignored or don't know how to deal with where that's coming from. And I believe the material realm is all manifested from what you're calling the internal realm.
Yeah.
It's funny because, oh, sorry.
Yes, please, Laura.
I remember having a discussion with, not putting any scientists down, a scientist type guy years ago. And he was going on about, people go on about all these energy fields and blah. This is before they really got into knowing there's auras and everything else, and emotional bodies. And I remember having this disagreement with him. And it was the funniest thing. I remembered a story about, do you remember the story of Rasputin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he had been asked by the Queen or whoever she was, I think they were a Russian royalty, and he was asked to help with their child because the child had been born with issues, and they had the royal physician. So you can imagine back then, the royal physician was probably looking to poison Rasputin because he'd taken on, because it's a big prestige to be the royal physician. And apparently do you know this story where they met up in the hallway, in the corridor, and Rasputin was just coming out of the child's bedroom, having done some esoteric work, healing work. And the physician was furious. He said he wasn't qualified to work with this child, and he'd have him hung or whatever if anything happened to the child, because he wasn't qualified. And Rasputin said, well, how do you qualify? When a patient says to you, I'm in pain, and you can see all the organs are right, he said, how do you know? How do you know that person has a physical problem? And he said, well, I can see it. I understand it. I know the body parts. And he said, no, you can't physically touch it, taste it. You know this person from their expression is in pain. It's genuine. So you're talking about my lack of qualification. Well, it was that kind of discussion. And I said to him, maybe you should read Rasputin's story, because then you'll understand that we all are empaths. We're all sensitive. We all feel. And if anyone's next to us, not everyone, but most people get a sense that that person who's got the migraine or the appendicitis or whatever, you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it mostly, but you can see something's not right. So for me, it's like, having learned those things, it gave me permission to actually trust my intuition. And this person actually was quite gobsmacked, but he wasn't very happy, and he sort of like wanted to go off. And I said, well, just look at the Rasputin story. End of. And that conversation between, I don't get stories right. That's why I don't tell jokes. I'm terrible. I always give you the punchline before I've done it. And he did. And Greg came back to me and he said, the penny dropped. The penny dropped. He actually got it. And he realized that because he's got thesis and things they work on, there's also a whole world out there that haven't had a chance to explore. And he actually said to me, okay, but prior to that, he was like, it's woo-woo, women burning things in a cauldron pot. So it's changed my values, and it also means that any conversation, even if it upsets us, after the fact, we're able to usually look at it and see ourselves, our part in it, and our feelings in it, and what's triggered that, which is usually nothing to do with the conversation or the argument that we've had. I've completely lost track.
No, it's related. You nailed, I felt, this question of woo-woo, but I feel, and I know completely, I'm holding on the word esoteric, and it's no question to me, Lee, that your support or interest in that. But I think, I've made a choice. Very often I make a choice in talking about my work with people to try and avoid the more unusual words, and just to talk in a really simple way that, if everybody had satisfying conversations, then these other needs that they want to do might go away, at least for human beings. I cannot comment for psychopaths or sociopaths. I don't know how they operate. But for normal human beings, given the chance to have a conversation about something that they love to talk about, they love to do it. It's very deeply, there's a feeling of that the world is right, a feeling of I am right, I am not. We have a man who's about to sneeze, I think. Frozen on screen.
Me?
Yes.
Am I frozen?
It froze just as it looked as though you're going to sneeze. So, yeah. So, maybe it's a small contribution, but understanding what is a satisfying conversation. It's a very deep question, actually. What is a satisfying conversation?
It's
Not
satisfying
just satisfying to me, but in general satisfying.
on a lot of levels. I mean, communication is really key. When I've said that before, I just totally agree with you on so many levels. Not only satisfying, but useful. And then I think the world's problems are largely due to miscommunication, misunderstanding communication. And that was this vision I had that started me off down this path, I don't know, many years ago. And I've already told you about it, but I really think that communication is so powerful and so important to get right. But it happens at a lot of different levels, and we can talk about it at a lot of different levels. We can talk about it in a practical sense, and we can talk about it in a more esoteric sense. And I think we bridge the gap here a little bit.
And I feel by not having an agenda, there's less risk that our limited mind will come into play. Because yes, I'm using my mind to speak with you right now, but I would like to believe that my words are following my heart-based, heart-connected intention. And I would like to believe that my attention is greatly focused on what could possibly be interesting to the two of you. You see?
Yeah, yeah.
So less agenda.
Okay. Well, I'm interested too in the fact that, we kind of started off about intercultural and interlanguage kinds of issues that come up in communication, right? And then last time we spoke, we talked about, I brought up about difficulty in just dealing with people in my own country, but dealing with people that are from the Midwest versus California, and then,
and
Republicans,
finding out that the Californians are a really big problem.
Yeah. But then you have the conservatives and the liberals.
Yes.
And then you have the different psychological profiles. And then you even have, and this is something I learned on Quora, I wasn't aware of this, differences in intelligence. So, yes. There have been studies that said that you can only communicate effectively with people who are within 30 points of your IQ range. So if someone is farther than 30 points from you, it's very difficult to communicate with them because your brain works differently. And so you've got all these different things, cultural and intellectual and
tribes.
Tribes of every sort, and we're all being divided up, especially now with identity politics. We're being sliced and diced in all these different ways, and I think that makes communication very, very difficult.
And
very
I
difficult.
just understood something. Divide and rule.
Well, I think that's what's going on.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I think it's gone on forever. It's just getting more and more integrated, sort of tiny, in order to keep you all on your toes. It's interesting because the more I see that they're doing, because even in England they're doing more of that, and I think it's to keep us busy whilst they do whatever they're doing around us, and when it's all the stage is set, it's too late.
Yeah, keep us fighting each other rather than, if we all gang together, if we all got along, we'd fight them, so.
Exactly, but that is exactly it. And, interestingly, most people don't even know about them.
Right.
They don't even know. Did you hear about the story about the royals, the Queen's husband?
I don't pay attention to the royals.
Oh, it's very interesting. Mo, tell. You're better at it.
Well, it turns out that Prince Philip, who is a 97-year-old driver, just a few days ago, pulled out onto a road as another car was coming well below the speed limit and caused a crash. And, obviously the license should be taken away. And 2 days later was photographed without his seatbelt on, 2 days later. So this is the husband of the Queen. So obviously in a normal world, this man should definitely this man had caused an accident that caused a significant injury to the other driver. So obviously the man's license should be taken away, and consequences should happen, and we're just watching and seeing what happens.
Okay.
And so there's a little extra bit. I'll see if you can understand this lead. So Prince Philip caused this accident. At the time said, I'm such a bloody fool. And then through one of his staff people, they sent a message to the victim and said, Prince Philip and the Queen would like to be remembered to you.
Would like to be remembered?
By you.
Well, I don't think he's going to forget, right?
Well, yeah, so why did they say it? It took me a bit of time. Laura understood it right away because she knows this double talking kind of way of speaking. So, of course, somebody who causes a broken wrist, then the person who causes the accident will be remembered. But why did the royal family say it to them? Well, we think it's to say, watch out what you're saying. Remember who you.
It's a threat.
It's a threat. It's
really
witness tampering. Frankly, it's witness tampering.
Really?
Yeah, of course. How would you take that comment?
When you think about it, how we're saying it.
No apology, nothing else, just that.
Like to be remembered to you.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. It's not obvious, but I think you're probably right. I mean, it should have been an apology.
Absolutely.
Should have been an outright apology. You know, like,
should have been a diamond bracelet, personally, seeing they broke her wrist as well.
A tiara. A tiara.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised he doesn't have a driver. I mean, I would expect he wouldn't be driving.
Thank you. Yeah. Interestingly, a very old, expensive car, I thought it was like a Jaguar, did the same thing to me. Do you remember, Mo?
Yes.
A couple of months ago. Just rolled forward, and I was doing like 50 miles an hour. I slowed down to 30, knew there was no way I could do anything but smash into him. And it was like something divine happened, because I went into the second lane, the opposite lane. I don't know how I got through that, but it was just like a computer game. And exactly that. I wonder that if it was him. I didn't even get a chance. It was an old guy. I'm sure his hair was
with Rolls Royce.
No, it was quite serious. It shook me for days.
But they only drive Rolls Royces, darling. Nothing.
Oh no, this wasn't a Rolls Royce, but it was like a Bentley or a Jag. It was but an old car. It wasn't like a modern one. It was distinct. I think it was yellow or beige. But do you see what I mean? How easily these things happen. And this person didn't stop rolling. That's what shocked me the most. So he should have, as I came around him, should have hit me. So I think the divine was with me, you know.
Protecting you.
But he should have his license removed.
Yeah.
And he should be grounded.
But we will see.
Go to your room.
We will see whether the police, of course, the police don't want to do anything. The royal family definitely doesn't want anything to happen. And we will see if Prince Philip is treated as the regular citizen as they claim to be.
Yeah. Well, that'll be very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep you posted.
You've got to go.
I'm going to have to get going. I need to get up to. I was going to cut it off at the 1 hour mark.
Sure.
I have to go up to Lake County today. I do have a question for you, though, unrelated. Well, maybe it's related. From your German perspective, I need to call on your German expertise.
Sure.
The word Hintergedanke.
Hintergedanken?
Do you know the word?
Hintergedanken?
Hintergedanke. Hintergedanke.
Yeah.
That's how I.
Hintergedanke. So it's like the first thought is what you say, and the thought behind it, perhaps your subtext. subtext in a conversation, your hidden thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like, that's a little bit about what we're talking about, I think, right?
Yeah, it is. Hinter
Like-
means behind, Gedanke means thought or thoughts.
Oh, okay.
Behind thoughts.
How do you spell that? Hinta? H?
I'll write it in the chat.
Okay.
If
But
it is
that
indeed
is that the I am then that's giving the
no,
Hinta Gedanke?
no,
No.
because I'm giving you, I'm saying I am, I can communicate, I can learn to communicate, but this is a word description of a non-verbal readiness. Whatever it is that began your process of learning your first language, whatever this is in you that began this process and also begins any conversation, is that readiness. If you don't have that readiness, there will be no conversation. It won't happen. Somebody will talk to you and you will not be able to have a conversation with them. But when you know what this is, its permanent nature, you can always access it. You can stand on stage, you are completely frozen, and you can even enjoy the moment of stage fright because you know you're still at home looking at the people.
Now this is the I am.
Yeah.
You're accessing the I am?
And also the I am as the foundation for I can, as the foundation of I can communicate, as the foundation when nothing else works, I can learn how to communicate in this moment with this person. If you need to go, we can explore more next week.
Well, I think this is interesting. I'd like to explore it, but I do need to get going. So I suppose
Okay, have a beautiful day. It's good to
yes,
see you. You're
good,
looking well.
good luck. Let
All
me
the
know.
best. I'm surprised the Moroccan didn't turn up, but that's it. Fantastic.
Yeah. Let me know how it goes, Laura.
Okay, thank you. You have a
Yeah,
beautiful day.
good luck.
All
Okay,
the
bye-bye.
best.